Is Nvidia still a top pick for you? Everything you're seeing there just reinforcing what you like?
I think it's a table pounder. I think it's going to be a $4 trillion and eventually $5 trillion market cap because there's only one red phone to call for these chips. It's the godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia. And what I'd also tell you, and we talk about in the note, from a DeepSeek perspective, 45, 50 enterprises, not one has changed plans post DeepSeek. I think it just shows this CapEx doubling down. That's what we're seeing across not just big tech, but across enterprise.
Dan, there were some takes last week on this AI summit in Europe where some of the survey work being done had some constituents saying, yeah, we're curious, but we're not seeing outright value on these investments quite yet. Where do you think AI, how much of IT budgets does it make up, and how much could it get to?
Yeah. I mean, Carl, I think that's why you look at names like Palantir, right? Kind of sort of the golden child in terms of use cases, monetization, as it's already playing out. We believe everything we're seeing, it's about 10% IT budgets, and in some cases, 15%. Now, look, there are some enterprise and, of course, places around the world that are not going down the AI path, of course. But they're going to have to delay their initiatives for, I'd say, 12, 18 months, because right now, demand's outstripping supply 15-1. And that's why I sit here and I think tech stocks are going to be up another 25% this year, despite tariffs, despite nervousness, worries about stretch valuation. I think Street is massively underestimating what demand looks like in this AI revolution, second, third, fourth derivatives.
And so if demand is going to be that strong, and you just mentioned tariffs, I mean, do you think tariffs are somewhat of a non-issue, meaning you're just going to pay what you have to pay because you need these chips to do what you've planned to do?
Yeah, and Courtney, you're talking about with Elon before. I mean, I think this is all a poker game, right? And I think, it's very easy to get nervous in terms of first shots across the bow. I don't believe it's going to massively impact the chip and overall AI revolution. I think there's also going to be some, some gaps in terms of whether it's Apple, Tesla, potentially, some opportunities that they could ultimately not really even be impacted by some of the tariffs as this all plays out. But what we're seeing here in Asia, less nervousness about tariffs than maybe even 6 weeks ago. And that's bullish when you look at this relative to overall demand and what's going to really be a game of high-stakes poker between DC and Beijing.
Finally, Dan, you mentioned Apple. We're on the lookout for this newest member of the family announcement. Any clarity in your mind what we should expect?
Yeah, look, I think it's another product that's going to just fuel more and more of what I believe is just a broader, not just upgrade cycle, but Apple is going to continue to see this renaissance of growth. I think when you sort of look at the price point from an SE perspective, especially emerging markets, especially developing markets, I think India more and more is going to become a bigger market. This just shows Cupertino is not just going to play on the high end. They're going to focus on middle market. They're going to focus on rolling out Apple Intelligence. We think to China really soon with Alibaba as a partner. And that's why, look, haters will hate in Apple, but the first one to hit $4 trillion will be Apple, in our opinion, followed by Nvidia.
Dan Ives has some important and urgent news to share with all Nvidia holders right now as the stock faces challenges. He vows to spill the secrets of the stock and show everyone the truth behind Nvidia right now. The company has embarked on daring conquests into artificial intelligence and autonomous vehicles, setting the stage for a future that could redefine digital interaction. Yet, in the backdrop of these advancements lurks the enigmatic truth that is the cause of all that is happening. Welcome back, everyone, to Investocracy.
All right, let's turn to shares of Nvidia this morning. They're turning lower. They were up in response to the quarter, but they did turn lower once the market, I think, started to really digest the potential prospects for 20% tariffs on imports from China. Here to help us break things down is D.A. Davidson's Gil Luria and Cantor Fitzgerald's C.J. Muse. Gil has a 135 price target. He's neutral on the stock. C.J.'s at $200, and as you might imagine, given that price target, as an overweight. Gil, let's start with you. Tariffs are making you look smart right now, but I wonder, what do you take away from the quarter that didn't give you perhaps more confidence in the stock and the performance in the future?
I actually don't think this has a lot to do with tariffs. The stock was already down also after the close yesterday, because this is as good as it gets for Nvidia. their big customers increased their spend the most into Q4 as they ever have and probably ever will. 2 of their 3 largest customers have said CapEx will be flat into the first half of the year. It's as good as it's going to get in terms of China. Whether or not tariffs matter, there will be more restrictions on sales of chips to China, so those sales are going to be under pressure. And then it's as good as it's going to get in terms of margins. With their current accelerated product introduction cycle, every time they get to 75% gross margins, a new product's going to drag it down back to the low 70s. So they've done phenomenally well. They're still doing well this year, but this is probably as good as it's going to get.
All right, good as it's going to get, says Gil. CJ, what's your response?
Yeah, I think it's a thoughtful view, but one that I completely disagree with. We are in the first stages of the Blackwell ramp. They were able to ship $11 billion in the quarter, or 1/3 of total data center revenues. And that's the fastest ramp in the company's history. I think very importantly, they are supply constrained. I think part of the gross margin miss is the fact that they have these supply chain issues. Also, pricing from TSMC went up on Jan 1, so they have to mitigate that. But if you think about this Blackwell product cycle, I think you're going to get a July quarter where you get a re-acceleration on the top line. And then we're going to go into Blackwell Ultra in the second half. And then we're going to have Rubin very quickly in the first half of 2026. So I think the data center growth story is robust. I think gross margins will push to 75% exiting the year. And as long as they continue to deliver more and more value, drive down the cost of compute, I think that enables AI to become more ubiquitous. Data center will grow again in 26. And the moment the market has conviction on that growth in 26, stock will continue to work.
A glance at Nvidia's roster of collaborations reads like a who's who of tech royalty, evidenced by partnerships that push the frontiers of AI development. And their Drive platform, a virtual Sherpa guiding the automotive industry toward the totemic peak of self-driving capabilities, with forecasts suggesting the autonomous vehicle market might hit $556.67 billion by 2026. Yet, Nvidia isn't seeing this success translate to its stock as the tech market becomes increasingly anxious and volatile. But before going on with the video, are you into cryptocurrency? If so, check out our second channel, Investocracy Crypto. We bring you breaking news, expert analysis, and the latest trends in the fast-moving world of digital assets. Whether you're a seasoned crypto investor or just curious about the future of finance, we've got something for you. Click the link in the description to subscribe to Investocracy Crypto now. Don't miss out and stay ahead of the game. Now, let's get back to the video.
But CJ, you say as well, clear upside to $8 or more when all is said and done. What does that mean when all is said and done?
If you can get to the 300 billion kind of number for next year, that's where, we would underwrite that larger EPS number. But I think very importantly, if you believe in the 650 to 7, you're buying a stock now at less than 20 times next year's earnings, which I think is incredibly attractive. I would say, though, that the main question out there is just whether 26 will be a growth year or whether we will have a digestion year. And, I think we'll have visibility to that around the late May, June timeframe, given kind of 12+ month lead times for Blackwell. And so I think Computex Taiwan will be a very important kind of inflection point where I would expect Jensen will keynote again and that he will offer a view. And I think the moment the market kind of can underwrite another growth year is when the stock can work again. Because quite frankly, the report we got last night was basically in line with buy-side expectations. So what we want to see is that accelerating second derivative and really start to see upside to numbers. And, that's going to be the second half of 25 and into 2026.
Gil, what do you think about 26 in particular, as CJ just said? Growth year or digestion year?
It's far more likely that it's a digestion year. To get to CJ's number, you need to add $80 to $100 billion next year, with at least 2 of the customers already telling us they're probably at plateauing in terms of CapEx. Microsoft and Amazon have already said it. Google will probably say it by the middle of the year. So without their biggest customers increasing spend probably at all, it's very hard to see them adding $80 to $100 billion of revenue next year.
Dan Ives thinks the truth lies beyond Nvidia itself. The stock is better than ever and is poised to surge even beyond expectations. But the environment with the competition and the Trump tariffs pose an interesting challenge to the expected dominance of Nvidia in the space. Not to mention the rumors of semiconductor shortages giving every investor anxiety. Investing in third-party foundries and diversifying supply chains, Nvidia's strategies hint at software-like agility in hardware territory, proving that even in Silicon Valley, flexibility wins the day. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
On the tariff issue, I mean, you brought into focus, I think, the correct one, which is will the restrictions on low-end chips continue or even go even lower, because it's not as though they're importing a lot from China. Obviously, their manufacturing capacity is largely in Taiwan.
Right.
I mean, do we think that's fair, though, to say that that is and how much of a concern that is for him?
Well, it doesn't seem to be that big a concern in the sense that China revenue, what they're projecting, what they're guiding to, is that the percentage of revenue coming from China is going to be stable. Part of what he was saying is that before there were these restrictions, the percentage revenue coming out of China was twice what it is now. And of course, Nvidia said that they're going to abide by whatever export restrictions. But if you zoom out a little bit, something else coming out of China, not tariff affected, is DeepSeek. And Nvidia stock did get impacted when the initial news of that model out of China came out. And there's been a lot of talk. The initial assumption was, boy, DeepSeek can run on lower end AI-related hardware. So is that bad for a producer of premium hardware or premium systems like Nvidia? And really, Jensen argued the opposite, that because DeepSeek is based on breaking down these problems, AI-related, into smaller pieces and reasoning through them in the longer term, that could mean more demand for compute resources.
Positioned as both the present force and the future visionary, Nvidia holds sway over the digital landscape with an iron grip. Those considering investment would do well to watch Nvidia as it sails forward with interest, mindful of the market dynamics and sectoral shifts that color the journey. But what do you think? Do you agree with Dan Ives' sentiment? Share your perspective. Finally, if you would like to know what companies like Nvidia have been up to these past few days, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.